I'm in Europe, it's the last of the summer and I'm finally going to do it. I'm going to make a video. I've got so much, but I'm going to make a compilation of all the things I've been doing in the summer, in the long summer, just getting around Europe, despite being in a wheelchair. So, could take all day. On, go, go, go! I joined Kamila in Gdańsk on the Baltic coast of Poland at the end of April. I love the bike tow and she's quite adventurous, so we did some cool little trips.
You can do this! Whoa.
She kept me active and doing various things. I barely had time to rest while she was at work because she always wanted to plan to squeeze things in between shifts. We'd often get away, and I've always liked camping. There's no steps in a tent. Exercises are definitely one way that I can make her happy. The main problem is that moving my core around tends to empty my bladder rather quickly. It's not the best motivation to be active. I had to work around that, but at the end of the month I had a breakthrough. Experimenting with new ways to do things and having fun and being playful is one of the best ways to have exercise, in my opinion. I'm not really a person that likes to go in and do repeated things at the gym. The main reason I'd returned to Australia earlier that year was to pursue surgery. But it seems that this isn't the best way to solve this problem.
Oh, it's too easy! You were supposed to kiss it, not touch it with your nose. This is easier. This is too easy.
At the end of May, we travelled together to Italy. Our first stop was her favourite city, Venice. Steps make it difficult to get around, but if you really want to video it, then you have to go somewhere quiet because usually people come and help you straight away. After this, we stayed at a friend's apartment in Trento and did a few day trips.
It is amazing. I'll see you in 20 minutes.
No bike tour this time, but we'd be coming back. Just before leaving Italy, I finally put in a Foley catheter, which is a new habit that has changed my life. Our next stop was Tirana, following cheap flights, and from there she'd return to work and I'd go to the gliding club for June. It's quite handy being able to get on the bus without wetting your pants, and hospitals should be avoided wherever possible. After waiting most of my last year for the Class 2 medical, I was now allowed to fly solo. The hills were so green and the mountains so white, it was a bit like flying in Switzerland. Early season is my favourite time though, even if a lot of days were washed out due to weather. I did the theory exam, again as the last one expired waiting for my medical, and then sat the practical exam at the end of the visit. Back in Poland, it was still on my to-do list to get a car.
Who needs a freewheel?
No!
This one has been following us for quite a long way. And it aggressively rammed our boat before when we went into this special favourite grass patch.
Kamila definitely wasn't that keen on the idea of getting a car, and it takes me a while to get organised.
Where's my driver?
During this trip to the south of Poland, I think I really thought a lot more about how useful a car would be. Or maybe it was this.
What?
Finally, at the end of July, I bought pretty much the first car I saw after we went to some dodgy dealer, and I was keen that it was a perfect setup so I could sleep in the back and I'd be driving off to France. We went for a paddle on my last day in Gdańsk. In Bydgoszcz, the mechanic didn't have anything encouraging to say about the car, but I felt it was now or never.
Oh, that's good.
I crossed the border, slept at a Czech gliding club and hooked up the dash cam the next morning. So I paid 270 Czech krona, about Australian $20, for a 10-day vignette to use the highways in Czechia. But the country roads are so scenic to drive through. Keep an eye out for tractors. I'm watching how much diesel I'm burning, and while small hills and braking for towns isn't good for fuel, the lower speeds help a bit. 5 litres per 100 kilometres seemed possible, but it also depends a lot on height gain or loss, of course, just like a glider. It was a new windscreen, so they said it was best to keep it dry for a few days. The previous day in Poland was great as there were storms everywhere else, but I only had a few drops and nothing I needed to use the window wipers for. I was headed for another gliding club, this time a little more organised, as Don Pierre from my French club was crewing in a championship. The club was great. I even got a free feed and I caught up with a familiar face, a Dutch pilot who'd flown at my club. Europe is beautiful to drive through and the gliding theme was working well. In the morning, some German pilots told me about a club with a hand rudder glider, so I'd already contacted them and I would head there next. After visiting the post office and getting a feed in Tabor, I spent quite some time driving to the west of Czech. In fact, I perhaps forgot my Google Maps was set to avoid tolls, despite having paid for the vignette. Anyway, this is a country which isn't particularly mountainous, but it doesn't seem as if there is anywhere flat. It made me think about the old days where you might have some horses and ride up to the next hill and it might be a castle and you might have to defend your village. Anyway, I picked up a hitchhiker before leaving the country and perhaps regretted not asking him to help me fill the tank. That was better done before I crossed into Germany, where I took advantage of the Autobahn and I tried to analyse how speed affected fuel consumption. Again, it's so tricky because there doesn't seem to be anywhere flat. My goal was to visit Heidelberg before it got dark. This was one of the first stops on the Europe trip I did with Dad back in 1996, before we went to the Alps. It was rather busy with tourists, but fun to get around the cobbles on a wheelchair. Studying the map, I found an amazing camping spot in the forest halfway back to the gliding club. I had it to myself until a few hours after dawn, where some people on horseback passed by. Then it was out to the local gliding club, which has a hand-controlled SK-21, also another aircraft that wasn't there at that time, but yeah, had a great little flight, really weak thermals, off the winch and just thermaling with the birds and just checking out the local area. It was really cool. Then it was time to drive to Switzerland. It was now time to turn to the south, and today for company on the Autobahn I picked up a couple of BlaBlaCar guys. I've used this app before in Europe. It's kind of like pre-arranged hitchhiking with fuel money, but it was the first time to do it as the driver. The guys were great, and one of them gave me a warning that stayed on my mind: don't get a speeding fine in Switzerland. As I crossed the border I felt like I was walking on eggshells, but in fact within minutes of arriving something else happened. I even caught it on camera. Can you believe it? A collision. Well, it's fine by me. This is why I feel more comfortable in an old car. I waited to see if they'd turn back, but they never did. Fine by me. I'd forgotten that I had no data on my phone in Switzerland. It's in the middle of Europe, but kind of not in Europe. I couldn't let Kamila know where I was, nor Steve, who I'd arranged to visit. For now, I just had to make sure that I didn't get a speeding fine. For that, it's quite helpful to actually know what the speed limit is. In Europe, they quite often tell you what the speed limit isn't, rather than what it is. So I actually pulled over and tried my best German, asking some guys how fast I could go in between towns, when the limit on the sign is not 70. It was a beautiful drive through the smaller Swiss villages. I'd opted not to get a vignette, as during my short visit I didn't think I'd get a year's worth of value. Yes, it's all or nothing with the Swiss vignette. So I arrived in Interlaken after dark. I parked outside Steve's place, but in fact he wasn't there. I'd find him in the morning. I hadn't had a wash in a few countries, so it was awesome to catch up with Steve and his new family.
By the way, the boat is coming. Just with the waves.
Do you want to put like a tap? Probably make it more.
The boat's what?
It's just coming this way. It's going to make some waves.
Oh, okay. I caught up with Ray and his family as well that night, the second night in Interlaken, and that time I had a proper shower. So good restock, and I'll have to go back. There's other people to visit there as well. All right, I'm in.
Nice.
So hail on the new windscreen. Well, that's enough for tonight. It's really fun looking back at the adventures and narrating them. I've got the full playlist, but it's just so much footage. But yeah, I'm looking forward to narrating the rest. I'm not sure when. There's at least a dozen videos, so yeah, who knows. But yeah, it was a good summer, and who knows what's going to happen with the car now. It's broken down, but it was good while it lasted.